Hare Krishna. So we have completed Pramana Khanda, establishing Srimad Bhagavatam as the highest Pramana. So now we proceed to the Prameya Khanda, which talks about the aspect of, especially the aspect of Tattva, aspect of Sri Krishna as being the object of worship. Tattva. So that is spoken in multiple ways in Prameya Khanda. Prameya Khanda primarily what it does is from Anuched 29 to almost Anuched 49, it discusses about Sambandha Videya Prayojan based on various episodes in Bhagavatam. And then after that, the 10 topics of Bhagavatam are discussing and showing the aspect of Sambandha Videya Prayojan over there. So like that, two main sections are there. One is talking about the 10 topics of Bhagavatam, that is 49 onwards. And before that, through various episodes like Vyasdev Samadhi, that is a major episode discussed over here in Prameya Khanda. You can say that's the heart of Prameya Khanda. From Anuched 30, 29 will talk about Shukadev's realization, 30. From 30 all the way up to 49 Anucheda, it's all primarily Vyasdev Samadhi only. That way. So Vyasdev Samadhi is the major chunk of discussion over here. So in that he will draw all the principles of Sambandha, Videya, Prayojan. He will talk about impersonalism. He will talk about Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan, all these different aspects of that way. So it is primarily based on Bhagavatam only now. Raman Khanda was based upon uh, many other references, right? Garud Puran, or a lot of analysis of some Vedic references, Mahabharata, and then some other references from Puranas like Padma Puran or Varaha Puran and all that. But here now we are discussing Prameya, and it will be primarily based upon Srimad Bhagavatam because he has already established Srimad Bhagavatam as highest Pramana like that. So let us see this. So in this now, see, I will also recommend all of you. I have although I have shared Bhanu Maharaj's book translation with all of you. If somebody can take responsibility to do scanned version of Gopi Parandan Prabhu's translation of Tattva Sandarbha, I think I can give that. I have that hard copy. Or if some of you have the soft copy of that particular book, the hard copy book can be made into a soft copy because it is out of print now. And so, if you wish, you can take that book's soft copy. Why am I saying this? Because he has written very nice commentary for every Anucheda. And he has also summarized the contents in the beginning very nicely. What are the themes of various Anuchedas in Praman Khanda? What are the themes of Anuchedas in Prameya Khanda? So all this is very nicely there in the book, but it is there in the hard copy book. The soft copy books that are there, usually the index is missing in that. Same is the case with Bhanu Maharaj's book also. I think the index is missing there. So because of which, to get a full idea of what all is there in Prameya Khanda or like that, it is difficult. Of course, I did ask one of the devotees, Sanatan Govind Prabhu, to make a make an index of all the Anuchedas in Praman and Prameya Khanda. So he has already shared with me Praman Khanda, which I will also share with all of you. And Prameya Khanda he is also prepared. So just which Anucheda has what theme, write that book on the book of Vibranda. So that is also useful then for you to get a full idea of what's there in this particular account. So any of you have that book, you may please share with or it from me, and you can it scan and share with all of your friends. I have a copy book in which all these things are very nicely mentioned. Not only he has written a commentary on every Anucheda, he has also translated Sarva Samvadini, and a very good translation of Sarva Samvadini. It is error-free actually. It is quite a high-class translation of Sarva Samvadini. So that's why I would recommend that book very much for all of you. And if you can just scan it, that would be great. Okay. I was just checking here also in Vrindavan. It is just out of print, so now I think they are not. It's not being made available. Okay. So Anuched 29. What is it speaking? See, Srila Jiva Goswami starts speaking about uh, how in Prameya Khanda, now we will talk about Sambandha, Videya and Prayojan Tattva based upon Srimad Bhagavatam. So especially in that Prameya, especially it is talking about the aspect of Bhagavan. That's what he wants to say. So how this Bhagavan realization is higher than even impersonal realization. So for that, he begins by talking about Shukadev and Vyasadeva. Shukadev and Vyasadeva are already introduced in Praman Khanda as the speaker of Bhagavatam and as the author of Bhagavatam. Shukadev is the speaker and Vyasadeva is the author. So how these two personalities experience, how it directs us to the proper Sambandha, Videya and Prayojan is being discussed by Vyasa. So he wants to tell and analyze the experience of Shukadev and also experience of Vyasadeva. So what is the experience of Shukadev that he wants to analyze? The experience that he went through when he heard those verses being recited by some of the disciples of Vyasadeva, and that transformed him completely. So that experience is sort of being analyzed over here in this Anuched, in Anuched 29. And in next Anucheda, and then it goes on for long series of Anuchedas, he also analyzes, Jiva Goswami also analyzes Vyasadev's experience. So Vyasadev's experience is which experience? Vyasadev's experience is his samadhi. When he was instructed by Narad Muni to undergo the process of meditating on the Lord Samadhi, Samadhaya, and then what all he saw in the Samadhi. So that experience, Bhakti Yogena Manasi, Samyak Pranihite Male, Apashat Purusham Purnam Mayam Chatadapashrayam, all that he analyzes in great details, in hair splitting details, actually. So that is his point. So Shukadev's experience is being analyzed in text 29 now. So we will see this now. So I have shared the screen with you. He says, Atha namaskurvanneva तथा भूतस्य श्रीमद्भागवतस्य तात्पर्यं तद वक्तुर्हृदय निष्ठा पर्यालोचनया संक्षेपतः तावन् निर्धारयति. So he is speaking. Srila Jiva Goswami continues to speak. So he says, Srimad Bhagavatasya Tattparyam, the import of Srimad Bhagavatam, the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tattparya, import, purport, purpose. So that purpose nirdharayati, that purpose is spoken, or that purpose is made fixed. Nirdharayati, that purpose is shown. It is shown by whom? It is shown by Sri Suta Goswami. Suta Goswami is establishing or decisively speaking the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. By doing what? By doing namaskar, atha namaskurvan. Okay, so meaning this particular verse that is coming ahead, it is spoken by Suta Goswami. And in that, he is doing namaskar. Whom is he doing namaskar to? He is doing namaskar to his spiritual master, Shukadev Goswami. But while doing that namaskar, he is establishing the purpose of Bhagavata. Srimad Bhagavatasya Tatparyam Nirdharayati. Kaha Nirdharayati? Who is doing this? Suta. Sutaha Nirdharayati. Sut Goswami is doing this. How is he doing this? Tad Vaktu Radhaya Nishtha Paryalochanaya Sankshepadah. So he is saying or establishing the import of Bhagavatam by showing analysis of the uh, the fixity in the heart of the speaker of Bhagavatam. Tad vaktuhu hradaya nishtha paryalochanaya. It's a big samas. What's the point? What is he doing? Paryalochan. He is doing analysis. How is he doing the analysis of what he is doing the analysis? He is doing the analysis of hradaya nishtha. He is doing the analysis of the fixity of the heart of whom? Tad vaktuhu. Bhagavatam's vakta, the speaker of Bhagavatam. See, basically what he is doing, he is telling what was Hridaya Nishtha, what was the fixity of heart, what was the fixity of consciousness of Shukdev before he heard the Bhagavatam verses, and what happened to him after hearing the Bhagavatam verses. So that's what is the meaning of that word. Tad vaktuhu hridaya nishtha paryalochanaya. That's what the word means. Vakta here is Shukdev. Hridaya nishtha is his fixity of consciousness or fixity of his heart, disposition of his heart. And paryalochanaya, meaning paryalochana. Alochana, आप समझते हो? Paryalochana, paritaha alochana. A complete careful analysis is called as paryalochana. That. So he is doing that careful analysis of the fixity, the Hridaya of Srila Shukadev Goswami. And by that, he is showing actually what is the import of Bhagavatam. What is that Bhagavatam wants to establish. So he's quoting this famous verse from 12th canto, 12th chapter, verse number 68. Swasukha nibhrut chetas tadvyudastanya bhavo त्यजित रुचिरलीला कृष्णसारस्तदीयम् व्यतनुत कृपया यस्तद्वदीपं पुराणम् तमखिलवृजिनघ्नं व्याससूनुं नतोऽस्मि. This is a chand called Malini. This is in Malini chand. So this verse is quoted at many places in Tika and everywhere. Whenever this topic comes of how even an impersonalist like Shukdev also got attracted. Even the great liberated souls also get attracted to Krishna's lotus feet. His Atma Ramashcham. So in all those contexts, this also be spoken because it also has the same point. Svasukha. Svasukha nirvita cheta. Tad vyudastanya bhavo. It is talking about Shukadev. Svasukha nirvita cheta. One whose consciousness was filled with svasukha. It was filled with the internal pleasure, swasukha, meaning the pleasure at the level of. Basically, he was filled with the bliss of self-realization. Swasukha, Atma Sukha, Sukha Nirvita Cheta. This Shukdev Goswami was always filled with bliss of self-realization. He was always on the platform of soul. He never identified himself with body, or he didn't even see others with body. He only perceived Atma. So he was always in that Atmananda, Brahmananda, Svasukha Nivrata Cheta. Because of which, because of such consciousness, Yudastanya Bhavo, all other thoughts, Anya Bhava, was actually Yudasta, was rejected by. He had brushed it aside. There was no Anya Bhava. He didn't have any material thoughts, material desire, material aspirations, nothing of that sort. He always situated himself on the level of Brahmananda, Atmananda. Both are same, basically. Identifying oneself as not as completely different from the body and only soul, spirit soul. So there is some pleasure in that also because one is freed from atyantika dukkha nivrutti, isn't it? That's the definition of moksha. So uh, there is no distress or anxiety caused because of any any miseries because of identification of body or mind or whatever. Like that. So he was free from all such feelings or thoughts. Vyudastanya bhav. Although he was like that, api, still, what happened? Ajita ruchira lila krishna sarastadiyam. But it so happened that his sara, tadiyam saraha, his essence, his consciousness was akrishta, was attracted by Ajita Ruchira Leela, by beautiful pastimes, nectarian pastimes of Lord Ajita. Ajita here means Krishna, general. It's not talking about Ajita meaning Manvantar avatar, Chakshusha Manvantar. No, Ajita here meaning Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, because that's what he heard, right? We know typically the verses which are said there. Aiteya Praman says that verses like Ahobakiyam or Barhapidam were sung, or Yam Manyase Matuleyam, such verses were sung. Right? So that's why it is Ajit here obviously refers to Krishna. Ajita Ruchira Leela, Krishna Sara. So he became Akrishta. He became completely attracted by Supreme Lord when he heard the Leelas. And then Vyatanuta Kripaya Yas Tattva Deepam Purana. And then he came back to home to Vyasdev's place and he studied from Vyasdev entire Purana, Bhagavad Puran. And Vyatanuta, he spoke that, he expanded that by speaking this Purana Tattva Deepam, which enlightens about all the Tattva, which enlightens about the ultimate absolute truth. And he did that with a great kripa, uh, with a great compassion. Tam akhila vrijinagnam. So I offer my natosmi is there in the end. I offer my respectful obeisances unto that Vyasa Sunum natosmi, who is said to be akhila vrijinagnam. He is said to be destroyer of all the sins. Vrijana means sins. Vrijana means obstacles or sins or contamination, and one who destroys it. So such is the power of Shukdev Goswami that by his instruction he destroys all the inauspiciousness or sin within the heart of the Shivas. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So here it is said he was Svasukha Nibrita Cheta and then still Akrishta Sara. Although he was absorbed in that Atmananda, but still his heart was completely conquered and got attracted. See, he would not have got attracted to any mundane thought, any mundane feeling, right? Because Vyudasta Anya Bhava, it is already said. Uh, Vyudasta Anya Bhava, one who had given up all sorts of feelings or thoughts or anything, mundane feelings, thoughts, perceptions, anything. And then in that particular state, if something is attracting his heart, it has to be of a nature which is higher than that Atmananda also, isn't it? Otherwise, why will he get even agitated, right? We know all the episode from his life where he was walking through the jungle, and at one point, where some of the Devakanyas, some of the ladies were bathing, and then although he looked at them, it was practically as if he didn't even see them. He didn't see their bodies. He was nirvika. So he didn't perceive only at that level of material perception. So, but when he heard the pastimes of the Lord, then that Atmananda, that state of Atmananda was shaken and broken, and he got immediately attracted. So it naturally proves that it has to be a subject matter which is much, much higher than this particular thing. So actually, when impersonalists comment on this particular aspect given in the Shukadev's life, so although it is so clear over here that although he was parinashkitepi nairgunye, right? Second canto also says that grihita cheta rajasya akhyanam yadati tavam. Although he was completely established in nairgunya, in in self bliss of the self, but still he was attracted by this. But typically in personalists, they only focus on the aspect that he was right from beginning always established in impersonal uh, realization. They don't take this aspect of why then he was attracted to the Lord's pastimes for analysis at all. They don't analyze this particular aspect, and they say that he was always in samadhi. And then because he was in samadhi, so when he heard Bhagavatam or like that, so that subject matter also, he heard as a sattvic subject matter. But point is, he was already situated in impersonal Brahma. So that's why that hearing that subject matter or like that, it was just, and then they'll take it to their typical point of saying that because he wants to enlighten conditioned souls. So he decided to hear it from Vyasadeva and speak it for the sake of conditioned souls. So whatever, I'm not going into that thing. The discussion anyway will come later. But the point is that here we can see that his agitation shows clearly that the subject matter has to be higher than what he was experiencing. Tika cha Sridhar Swami Virachita. Jiv Goswami is quoting Sridhar Swami's Tika here. Shri Gurum Namaskaroti. Suta Goswami, he offers his obeisances to Guru. Shri Gurum Namaskaroti, that is Srila Shukadeva Goswami. Swasukhe naiva nibhritam purnam cheto yasya saha. Swasukha nibhrita cheta. He is explaining this samas. One who was complete, perfect by the bliss of self-realization. Swasukhe naiva. One whose chetaha, one whose consciousness was completely filled with the pleasure of the self. Swasukhe naiva. Tenaiva vyudastaha anyasmin bhavo bhavana jasya. And because of that kind of full bliss of self-realization, all other bhavas, meaning the feelings, were vyudasta, were all brushed aside, they were rejected, they were not there. Tatha bhutopi. So although he was like that, Shukdev was like that, still ajitasya ruchirabhi lilabhi akrishta sara. Still, because of because of Lord Krishna's beautiful pastime, his Sara was attracted. What do you mean by his Sara? Swasukhagatam dhairyam yasya saha. His Sara was attracted, means its consciousness was attracted, and whatever was that dhairya, whatever was the stability of that mind because of bliss of self-realization, that was broken. That stability was shaken. and he became attracted to the Supreme Lord. Tattva Deepam, Paramartha Prakashakam. So then he learned the Bhagavatam, and then he came and spoke to Srila Shukdev Goswami, that Bhagavatam, which is said to be Tattva Deepa, Adhyatma Deepam or Tattva Deepam, Paramartha Prakash, that which enlightens us about Paramartha Vastu. So, Yo Vyatanuta, one who expanded, one who spoke, Tam Natosmi iti Esha. This is the Tika. Right? Evameva Dvitiya Tadvakyam Eva. So, similarly, in the second canto also we hear this. We hear directly from Shukdev, Tadvakyam Eva, Tasya Vakyam Eva. What is that? Prayana Munayo Rajan Nivrutta Videshedata Nirgunyastha Ramante Sma Gunanukatne Hare. And then all those Parinishthitopi Nirgunne and all those 3 verses are there in second canto, first chapter. Prayana Munayo Rajan. Ityadi Padyatrayam Anusandheyam. So there also the same thing is spoken. Just quickly see these 3 verses because it's important. See, Prayana Munayo Rajan Nivrutta Videshedhatah Nirgunyastha Ramante Sma Gunano Kathane Hare. So, what does he say? Shri Shukdev only is saying this. He is saying, here Rajan Parikshit, even those munis who are Nivrutta Vidhishedhataha, those who have crossed beyond all the do's and don'ts, meaning they are actually Jivan Muktas, and they have gone beyond these things of what should be done and what should not be done, because they have achieved that level of Jivan Mukta now. Nivrutta Vidhishedataha. But even such people who are beyond now all modes, 3 modes, Jivan Muktas, even such people, Ramante Gunanu Kathane Hare, even they are seen to be, delighting in the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. This is the nature of Lord's pastimes, that even such Jivan Muktas, they are seen to be taking a great delight in Lord's pastimes. Further, he says, Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhita Adhitavan Dvaparada Piturdvaipayanada. So that's why, although he himself was also, Shukdev was himself in bliss of self-realization, but he learned this Puranam Brahma Samhitam, Purana, which is essence of the Vedas, or which is as good as Brahma, which is as good as Supreme Lord. It is non-different than Supreme Lord, Brahma Samhitam. I learned this also in the beginning of Dwaparado, Dwaparado Adhitavan. From whom? From Dvaipayan, Vyasadeva. So this Dwaparado doesn't mean in the beginning, but in the end of Dwapar. That's a famous phrase you all know. When you say the tip of the tree. So the tip of the tree is actually the beginning point, literally. So that may sound like tip of the tree means basically root. But actually tip of the tree means the last point, the top point. Typically, that is how it is taken. So here also Dwaparadav doesn't mean in the beginning, but in the end, towards the end of Dwapar. Prabhupada also has explained that. See, upper portion of the tree, he says. That. So finally, he says, Parinishthitopi Nairgunya Uttama Shloka Leelaya Grihita Cheta Rajarshe Akhyanam Yadadhitavan. So he says, although I was already Parinishthit, fully realized in Nairgunya, in transcendence, I was already completely realized in Brahmadhyan. But still, what happened? Uttama Shloka Leelaya Grahita Cheta. By the Leela of Lord Uttama Shlok Shri Krishna, I became attracted. My mind was captured. My consciousness was captured. And that's why I came back and I learned this Akhyana. Akyanam Yadadhititavan. I came and Aham Akyanam Adhitavan. Tasmat Pituh Dvaipayanat. From Vyasadeva, I learned this Akhyana like that. So those three verses also are carrying the same point. So said Shirajiv Goswami. Atra khila vrajinam tadrish bhavasya pratikulam udasinam chadneyam. Here, when he says akhila vraji nagnam, right? He says the destroyer of all the contamination. So that means that what is that contamination? The contamination means any kind of consciousness which is contrary to this consciousness of loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any consciousness which is contrary to that or indifferent to that will be considered as vrijina, as contamination. And Shukdev Goswami has the power to destroy that contamination by his instructions. That's the point. Atra akhila vrijina. What is considered to be the obstacle or sin or contamination is any consciousness, any ideology which is opposite to this ideology of loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead's Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila, and Seva. This way. So, in this way. Tadevam iha sambandhitatvam brahmanandatapi prakashto ruchira lila vishishta shriman ajita eva. So what is the sambandhitatva here? Sambandhitatva means what? Sambandhitatva means with whom jiva has the sambandha. And that is called as sambandhitatva. So this sambandhitatva is here Ajit, Lord Ajit. He is showing this particular verse how it has three aspects of Sambandha Vidya, right? That's what he is going to do. Next, Vyasdev's Samadhi also, he will show how it has Sambandha Videya Prayojan aspect. So here also he is showing that. that. So here Shri Ajita is Sambandha Tattva, Sambandhi Tattva. And that is what Shriman Ajita, because he is shown to be even greater than Brahmananda. Ruchira Leela Vishishtaha means he had such Leelas which are special, more special than even Brahmananda. Who is this Ajita? Sacha Purnatvena Mukhyataya Shri Krishna Sanya Eva. Are bhai, that Ajit is Lord Shri Krishna only. You should know that Shri Krishna only is the Purna. He is the complete manifestation of absolute truth. So that's why here when we say Ajita, he says that Ajita is Supreme Lord Shri Krishna only. Even from pastime's sake, we know the verses that were sung were talking about glories of Lord Krishna only. And second, he says, Lord Krishna only is highest manifestation of Supreme Lord. So here, when you say Ajita, this word Ajita can apply in complete sense to whom? It can apply to Krishna only. Krishna is only Purna Purush, Apashyat Purusham Purnam, Mayam Chatatapashrayam, right? So they're Purnam Purusham. So same thing he is saying here also. That's why he says this Ajita is Sri Krishna only, Sri Krishna Sanya, personality named by Sri Krishna only. It is Sri Badarayan Samadho Vyakti Bhavishyati. And this will be clear also that how the greatest, most complete manifestation of Supreme Lord is Sri Krishna only. That will also be clear in the Samadhi of Sri Vyasadeva. Tatha prayojanakhya purusharthascha tadrish tada asakti janakam tat prema sukham eva. And what is the prayojan? Prayojan is actually that purushartha which produced such great asakti, such great attachment even in the heart of Shukadev. That is Prema Sukha. The very fact that Shukadev developed such an asakti towards the Lord just by hearing his pastime, so it proves that the prema manifested in his heart immediately. Such great asakti, such great attraction that he showed, shows that as soon as he heard those pastimes, prema immediately manifested within his heart. Because he was already completely pure from all the contamination, like that. So as soon as he heard that particular glorification, so immediately prema sukha manifested within his heart. Of course, we know that he is a prema bhakta right from beginning. We are talking in terms of the leela, that as soon as he heard it, it manifested. ततः अभिधेयम अपि तादृश तत्प्रेम जनकम तत्प्रेम सुखम एव. No, there is something mistake here. See, this line is correct. This line is not correct. ततः अभिधेयम अपि तादृश तत्प्रेम जनकम तल्लीला श्रवणादि लक्षणम तद भजनम एव इति आया. And after that, he went and heard the pastime from Srila Vyasadeva and all that. So we can know that by hearing, by doing Shravanam, that kind of prem evolved in his heart, that kind of prem came in his heart. So what is the process? The process is also shown over here. The process is Tal Leela Shravanadi Lakshanam Tad Bhajanam. So Abhidheya can also be seen over here. We saw Sambandhi Tattva, Ajita. We saw the Prayojan Tattva, the Prema Sukha, and the Abhidheya also, because he heard, and by that hearing, such great Prema evolved in his heart. So this Abhidheya of Leela Shravanadi Lakshanam, Abhidheya of hearing the Leela of the Lord, Tad Bhajanam, worshipping him by Shravanam Kirtanam and all that. That is actually Abhidheya, right? In our system, we know that Sambandha is between Krishna and the Jiva. So Sambandhi Tattva is Krishna. And then you understand, no? Sambandhi, meaning with whom Sambandha is made. And Sambandha Tattva, when we say that is Jiva, Sambandhi Tattva, that is Krishna. Within that relationship between Krishna and Jiva also there is Sambandha and Sambandhi, that way. So fine, that is Sambandha. What is the Abhideya? Abhideya is Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. And what is Prayojan? Prayojan is Prema. Prem Purushartha. Prema Pumarthoma. That. Atra Vyasa Suno iti Brahma Vaivartanusarena Shri Krishna Varat Janmata Heva Maya Tasya Avsprishtatvam Suchitam. And you know, this is Vyasa Sunam. So this was Vyasadev's son. So we know in Brahma Vaivat Puran, the story comes how he was promised by the Lord that he will never ever, Shri Krishna Varat, Shri Krishna only had given him the benediction that right from his birth only, you know, that he will never ever be touched by Maya. So Lord Krishna had only given that benediction to him. So that's why this personality is that same Vyasa Sunu, which is spoken in Brahma Vaivat Puran. He is saying that. And he was untouched by Maya right from the beginning, right from the time of his womb. He didn't want to come out of that womb, and Lord Krishna also promised him that even if he comes out, he will never be touched by Maya. That way. So it is that same Vyasa Sunu that he is speaking, because there are many other Shukadevas also. So he's confirming, Jiva Goswami is saying that this is the same personality whom Lord benedicted by saying that you will never be touched by Maya. That way. So Sri Suta, Sri Shaunaka. So this verse is spoken by Sri Suta Goswami to Shaunaka Muni, like that. So this way. So Baldev Vidyabhushan, whatever ideas he speaks, we discussed when we were seeing verse itself. So nothing like something separate. He is saying Sambandhi Krishna Tattvam, Bhakti is Avideya, Prema is Prayojan. Like that. Okay, so I will stop here. I just wanted to cover this Anucheda only anyway today, because I was sure we may not be able to take more. Initially, some discussion was going to take time. So from tomorrow, we will proceed with at least 2 to 3 Anuchedas per session, which is the Vyasdev Samadhi, very important section. But also because you have studied Bhagavatam, it will be easy to understand. Most of you have studied this section, so we may be able to go very fast because many of the ideas will already be clear to you. Hare Krishna. Do you wish to ask anything on this? See, this is standalone Anucheda only. Just Shukadev's experience is being spoken. And that's it. It ends over here. Next Anucheda onwards, it is all Vyasdev Samadhi being analyzed. So Jiva Goswami is analyzing speakers' transformation and also the writer's experience or transformation. That's the purpose actually. Okay. All right. You wish to ask anything, anyone on this session? Whatever we discussed. Any questions?
Prabhuji, this verse is like how we offer respects to the speaker, right? So this is like that for Sukadeva Goswami, right? We can.
Yeah. Yes, Sukadeva Goswami is offering respects to
respects to, okay.
Yes.
For Sukadeva Goswami, mainly this is like the prayer, Prabhu, for offering him for glorification of Sukadeva, or there is one more verse also.
There is basically, Prabhu, this is Sukadeva Goswami's ending prayer. Most important 2 verses are there, the classic verses from first canto, second chapter, 1.2.2 and 1.2.2 and 1.2.3. Those ones. Yam Pravrajantam Anopetam. And then next one is Yasvanu Bhavam Akilashrutisara.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanavad
Pranam.
This is important sloka. By this, the Sukadeva Goswami transformation for speaking Bhagavatam was very, very important. So,
yeah,
this transformation was the key point for speaking his Bhagavatam, entire Bhagavatam.
Yeah, his transformation was the reason why he went back to learn the Bhagavatam, and his compassion was the reason why he spoke the Bhagavatam. It's like that. Krupaya Vyatanuta, meaning by his great Krupa he spoke. But why did he first and foremost go only to learn the Bhagavatam? That was because he experienced a great joy by hearing just few verses of Bhagavatam. So that's why he decided, I have to know and hear the glories of this great personality, Sri Krishna, like that. So that's how we can see. The experience he went through caused him to go back to his father. And then when he learned it, out of his great compassion for the jivas, he also spoke, right? That's how Sud Goswami says in the first canto verses prayers. He says that, what is that? Yasvanubhavam akila shrutisharam ekam adhyatma deepam atititi irshatam tamondam samsarinam karunaya puran. Why did he speak this samsarinam karunaya? Because he was extremely compassionate to the samsaris. That's why he spoke Purana Bhugyam. Otherwise, he didn't have much business talking to anyone. He was like that personality. But once he heard the glorification of the Supreme Lord, he, out of his great compassion, he wanted to share it with samsaris and deliver them. Okay. Yes, Balabhadra Kripa.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much. Prabhuji, in Bhagavad Mahatmya also, the Bhagavatam is spoken by Chatush Kumar to Narad Muni and all the demigods and all the sages. But most of the time, this pastime is coming to Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. So, can you just give some light on this? That it is same Bhagavatam or something? This is that different from that previous one.
Yeah, actually, Bhagavatams have many versions. Bhagavatam is spoken by Kumaras to Narad Muni. Bhagavatam is spoken by Nar Narayan Rishi. There's one Bhagavatam spoken. Obviously, Chatushlok is spoken by Lord Narayan also. There are more Bhagavad traditions spoken in third canto. So there are multiple versions of Bhagavatam. But because we have the version which is Shukadev's version, in the sense what? Shukadev is the speaker there. Actually, the version we have is of Vyasdev. Vyasdev wrote the entire Bhagavatam, seeing the future. But the version he has written is of Shukadev Goswami. Meaning whatever verses Shukadev has spoken and all, Vyasdev has kept them intact actually. He has kept them intact in his Bhagavatam. So the 18,000 verse worth Bhagavatam that we have, that is primarily spoken by Shukadev. We see that. Vyasdev has added connections, has added context, has added some Sangati verses and all that. And that's how the whole thing is 18,000 verse. But it's primarily the version which was spoken by Srila Shukdev Goswami. And because it is so that's how we will hear within this Bhagavatam a great deal of glorification of how Shukdev was transformed. If you would hear about those versions of Bhagavatam which are spoken by Kumaras or like that, probably in that case, then some other different stories would have been highlighted. But because this version of Bhagavatam is Shuka Proktam and Vyasa Pranitam, so that is why we hear a lot about Shukadev's transformation. It's clear?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Anyone else? Keshav Nemakru?
So definitely we accept the about our acharyas and about especially Sukadeva Goswami speaking about the experience of happiness of Krishna being higher than the impersonal experience. But when we talk about experiencing, so it's always subjective. When the experience is more of a subjective thing. So how, definitely our authorities, our acharyas, we accept, we understand. But from an objective point of view, how we can put forward some arguments that your experience, you are talking about experience is higher. But how we can, as an objective, we can establish that the experiencing of Krishna's past is higher, like that.
So that's what, Prabhu. When it comes to objective understanding of how this pleasure is higher than even pleasure of Brahman, so then that will be dealt totally on the level of Tattva. Then for that, you should analyze what is the object, what is the dheya, the object of worship or object of meditation in a process of impersonal realization, and what is your dheya in the process of bhakti. So the aspect of objectivity, if you want to bring in, then that is more a tattvic discussion, and that's what he's going to do. In fact, in rest of the analysis of Vyasdev's Samadhi, see there he will not talk about experience. There he will talk about all objective only. Okay, you want to say, see, already we have talked about experience. We have said that Shukdev experienced a greater joy than even the joy of Brahmananda, like that. So at that level, from the personal example or from personal test case history, it is established. But you want to know how objectively also the analysis holds true, right? So then that's why the whole further section is coming, where how the analysis will be done is not the subjective, but what's the object of the meditation. The object of meditation of an impersonalist is Brahma. The object of meditation of a devotee is Bhagavan. And then now you compare Bhagavan and Brahma. And then whichever is the object, a higher object, natural it is that objectively also one can understand that meditation on that, realization of that object will be a greater enlightened state. Huh? So what you are saying, yes, it can be accepted, even if somebody argues like that. Huh? Usually, why somebody won't argue in that fashion also, because personalities like Shukadev Goswami and their pratyaksha or experience is considered Vaidusha pratyaksha. So that's why even an impersonalist may not argue like that, saying that, well, it's just subjective experience. No, he knows who are we talking about. We are not talking about some conditioned soul. We are talking about Shukadev. His pratyaksha is Vaidush pratyaksha. Otherwise, all the impersonal statements that he wants to quote on Shukadev's authority, they will also not hold any value, no? If you put the subjectivity over there. But he has already accepted that Shukadev's perception means Vaidusha Pratyaksha. Finished. So we have to accept it that way. So that's how that kind of argument, even at the experience level, need not be made. But even if we say, for the sake of argument, just for the sake of argument, how it will be dealt there in then is that you analyze the dhyaya, you analyze the tattva, the vastu. What is the vastu of impersonal path and vastu of bhakti? And that way also you can prove. Okay. Is it okay, Keshav? Yeah, I think so. Yes, he has. I think he is replied. Satyandru, you have something to say?
Just one clarification I wanted to have. Generally, when we talk about Shukdev Goswami, means we accept him as a Brahmavadi who has an understanding that there is a form of the Lord, but he is attracted to the Brahman realization of the God. So when we talk about Shukdev Goswami, so Shukdev Goswami is on that platform as a Brahmavadi, not an impersonalist who altogether reject the form of the Lord.
Yeah. So yes,
So
that is true.
that clarification is I wanted, that whenever we are talking about, so if impersonalists talk about anything, so he doesn't have a concept at all of having a Lord's spiritual form.
Correct. But what do you think? An impersonalist accepts Shukdev as a Brahmavadi, or he accepts Shukdev as a Mayavadi? What do you think?
So he might accept him as an impersonalist.
So that's the point. So that's why we are answering from that angle. Obviously, we know that Shukdev Goswami is a Brahmavadi. But as far as impersonalists are concerned, Advaitavadis are concerned, they accept Shukdev as Advaitavadi. They don't accept him as Brahmavadi. So that is the problem. We don't do that. We know he was a Brahmavadi. He was manifesting Brahmavad. Otherwise, why would I even talk to Sri Krishna when Sri Krishna appeared in Vyasdev's hermitage? He would have considered him as, why should I believe your words? But there Shukdev said that I believe only Mayadhisha's words. So Krishna is Mayadhish, so I will believe his words. That way. So we can substantiate that also. But this is not how they understand. They Advaitvadis don't accept Shukdev as Brahmavadi. Not at all.
Oh.
That's the point. So when Keshav Mahaprabhu is raising the question, he's raising from that side, from that angle. Fine, but as you said, as far as we are concerned, yes, we accept him as Brahmavadi, not Mayavadi.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else has anything? Okay, so fine, Prabhus. Thank you all very much. We will continue tomorrow to see Vyasadev's Samadhi, very classic section now in Prameya Khanda. All your understanding of the 7th chapter of first canto, that section of Vyasadev can be very thorough now, because practically 15 anuchedas we will continue to do this great analysis like that. So it's a classic analysis. Only those samadhi verses, those whatever bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite se leke 3-4 verses down the line, anarthopashamam sakshat bhakti yoga madhokshaje, and whatever that sasamita manukramya, just 4 or 5 verses, but the degree to which they are analyzed is more than 100 pages, English pages of A4 size. So much he has written on that. It's a classic analysis. Okay. Hare Krishna. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Tattva Sandarbha ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Jeev Goswami Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.